When I remarried at 55, I didn't tell my new wife or her two sons that the apartment complex we lived in was actually mine. I told them I was just the building manager, and I did the right thing, because the morning after the wedding, she threw my bags in the hallway and, "I'm glad to have you here. Follow my story until the end and comment the city you're watching from so I can see how far my story has reached." I never thought my second chance at love would end before it even began. My name is Carl Morrison, and I'm 55 years old. Yesterday was supposed to be the happiest day of my life since Sarah passed 5 years ago. Instead, it became the day I learned that some people wear masks so convincing, you forget they're not real faces. The wedding was small, intimate. Just Mallory, her two sons Jake and Derek, and a handful of close friends in the community room of Morrison Garden Complex, the apartment building where we all lived. I had been the building manager there for what everyone believed was 6 years. Ever since I moved into apartment 1A after Sarah died. What they didn't know, what I had carefully hidden from everyone including Mallory, was that I owned the entire complex. Mallory Chen was 47 with dark hair that caught the light just right and a smile that seemed to reach all the way to her eyes. We had been together for 2 years and I thought I knew her completely. She moved into apartment 4B 3 years ago, a single mother struggling to make ends meet after a difficult divorce. At least, that's what she told me. I watched her juggle 2 part-time jobs, always worried about the monthly rent of $1,200, always grateful when I could give her a small break on utilities or maintenance fees. I fell in love with her strength, her resilience, the way she never complained despite carrying so much weight on her shoulders. When she looked at me, I didn't feel like a grieving widower anymore. I felt like Carl again, not just the shadow of the man Sarah had loved. Our wedding day was perfect. Mallory wore a simple cream dress that made her look radiant. Jake, 24 and always a bit rough around the edges, actually wore a tie. Derek, 22 and usually glued to his phone, put it away for the ceremony. They walked her down the aisle together, and for a moment I believed we were becoming a real family. "Do you, Carl Morrison, take Mallory Chen to be your lawfully wedded wife?" the officiant asked. "I do," I said, looking into her eyes and seeing what I thought was forever. When she said her vows, her voice trembled slightly. "Carl, you've given me stability when I had none, love when I thought I'd never find it again. You've been my anchor." I squeezed her hands, feeling the cool metal of my wedding ring, the new one, not Sarah's ring, which I still wore on my right hand. The reception was lovely. Mrs. Patterson from 3C made her famous lasagna. Mr. Rodriguez brought his guitar and played the Spanish songs Mallory loved. Even Jake seemed relaxed, laughing at Derek's stories about his community college classes. We stayed up until almost midnight, cleaning up and talking about our future. Mallory mentioned wanting to redecorate my apartment. Our apartment now. She had such specific ideas about new furniture, about changing the layout. I found it charming how excited she was about making it ours. "I've been thinking," she said as we finally headed to bed, "maybe we should get a bigger place. Your apartment is nice, but with Jake and Derek visiting more often now that we're married, we'll figure it out," I told her, kissing her forehead. "We have time." I woke up Sunday morning to the smell of coffee brewing. For a moment, lying in bed listening to Mallory move around the kitchen, I felt truly happy. Sarah would have wanted this for me, I thought. She would have wanted me to find love again. When I walked into the kitchen, Mallory was already dressed, her hair pulled back in a severe ponytail I'd never seen before. Jake and Derek were at the small dining table, looking more serious than I'd ever seen them. "Good morning, wife," I said with a smile, reaching for her. She stepped back. "Sit down, Carl." Something in her tone made my stomach tighten. "Is everything okay?" "Sit down," she repeated, and there was no warmth in her voice at all. I sat, confused. The coffee mug she placed in front of me was chipped, one I'd never seen before. Not one of the matching sets Sarah and I had picked out together. "Jake, go get his things," Mallory said without looking at me. "What?" I laughed, thinking this had to be some kind of joke. "What things?" Jake stood up and walked toward the bedroom. I started to follow, but Derek moved to block my path. "Derek, what's going on?" I asked. "You need to leave," Mallory said. Her voice was calm, matter-of-fact, as if she were discussing the weather. "Leave? This is my apartment. This is my home." She turned to face me then, and the woman looking back at me was a complete stranger. The warmth was gone, the gentle smile, the soft eyes that used to crinkle when she laughed. This woman was cold, calculating. "Not anymore," she said. "We're married now. This apartment comes with the marriage, and the marriage comes with conditions." "What are you talking about?" Jake returned carrying a suitcase, my suitcase. hastily packed with what looked like random clothes. "Here's his stuff." "This is insane," I said, standing up so fast the chair scraped against the floor. "Mallory, talk to me. What's happening here?" "What's happening," she said, crossing her arms, "is that you're leaving. This apartment is too small for all of us, and since you're just the building manager, you can find somewhere else to live, maybe one of the smaller units." "Just the building manager?" The words felt strange in my mouth. "Jake and Derek need stability. They're young men trying to build their futures. You're 55 years old with a maintenance job. This isn't really about you anymore." I stared at her, trying to find any trace of the woman I'd married less than 24 hours ago. "You can't be serious." "I'm completely serious." She walked to the door and opened it. "Your things are packed. There's the hallway." Derek picked up the suitcase and set it outside the door. The sound it made hitting the hallway floor echoed through the building. "Mallory," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. "We just got married yesterday." "Yes," she said, "and now we're married, which means I live here, and you live somewhere else." "This doesn't make any sense. You love me. You said you love me." Something flickered across her face then, and for just a moment, I thought I saw a crack in the mask, but it was gone as quickly as it appeared. "Love is a luxury, Carl. Security is a necessity." Jake pushed past me toward the door. "Come on, man. Don't make this harder than it has to be." I looked at Derek, hoping to find an ally. He wouldn't meet my eyes. "If you don't leave now," Mallory said, "I'll call the building owner and tell them you're harassing tenants." The irony of that threat hit me like a physical blow. Call the building owner, if she only knew. I walked toward the door on unsteady legs. In the hallway, Mrs. Patterson was getting her mail. She looked at me with confusion and concern. "Carl, what's going on?" I'm not sure," I said honestly. Mallory appeared in the doorway. "Carl's moving to a different apartment," she announced cheerfully. "Newlywed adjustments, you know how it is." Mrs. Patterson looked between us, clearly sensing something was wrong but not knowing what to say. I picked up my suitcase, its weight feeling heavier than it should have. As I walked toward the elevator, I heard the door to what had been my apartment, my home, close firmly behind me. Standing in that hallway, holding a suitcase full of hastily packed belongings, I felt like I was living in some kind of nightmare. This was my building, these were my tenants. This was my life, and somehow in the space of 12 hours, it had been taken away from me by the woman I thought loved me. But as I pressed the button for the elevator, something Sarah used to say came back to me. "Sometimes people show you exactly who they are, Carl. The question is whether you're paying attention." I was paying attention now. And as the elevator doors opened, I realized that Mallory had just made the biggest mistake of her life. She had no idea who she was really dealing with. The spare apartment in the basement wasn't much. Just a small studio I kept for emergencies. But it gave me a place to think. From my window, I could see directly into the building's courtyard where Sarah's rose bushes still bloomed. She had planted them our first spring here, white roses that reminded her of her grandmother's garden in Ohio. I sat on the narrow bed, still wearing yesterday's wedding clothes, trying to make sense of what had happened. The woman who had thrown me out of my own apartment wasn't the same woman who had cried during our first dance 2 nights ago. That Mallory had been gentle, grateful, vulnerable. This Mallory was someone else entirely. My phone buzzed with a text message. It was from Mallory. "Don't try to come back up here. We need space to adjust to married life." I stared at the message, noting how she said "we," meaning her and her sons. I wasn't part of the "we" anymore, apparently. I was just an inconvenience to be managed. But something about this whole situation felt wrong beyond just the shock of it. Mallory's transformation had been too complete, too immediate. People don't change that dramatically overnight, not unless they were never who they claimed to be in the first place. I pulled out my laptop and did something I probably should have done 2 years ago. I started researching. Mallory Chen, age 47, divorced. The basics I already knew were accurate. But as I dug deeper, a different picture began to emerge. Her ex-husband hadn't left her financially desperate as she'd claimed. According to the divorce records I found, she'd received a settlement of nearly $200,000 plus monthly alimony of $3,000. $3,000 a month. That was more than double what she told me she made from her 2 part-time jobs combined. Yet she'd consistently struggled to pay her $1,200 rent, often asking for extensions, sometimes paying in cash with apologetic explanations about banking delays. I kept digging. Her previous address before moving to my building wasn't a small apartment in a rough neighborhood, as she'd told me. It was a 3-bedroom house in Westchester County. Property records showed she'd sold it for $420,000 just 6 months before moving into apartment 4B. My hands were shaking as I scrolled through more information. This was a woman who had received nearly $620,000 in cash from her divorce and house sale. She wasn't broke. She hadn't been struggling. She had been lying to me for 2 years, but why? A knock on my door interrupted my thoughts. I opened it to find Derek standing in the hallway, looking uncomfortable. "Hey, Carl," he said, not quite meeting my eyes. "Derek." I stepped back to let him in, curious about what he wanted. He looked around the small basement apartment, taking in the bare walls and single bed. "This is pretty rough, man." "It's temporary," I said, though I wasn't sure yet what permanent was going to look like. "Look," Derek said, sitting on the edge of the bed. "I wanted to talk to you about yesterday, about what happened upstairs." I waited. "The thing is," he continued, "Mom's been planning this for a while." The words hit me like ice water. "Planning what exactly?" Derek shifted uncomfortably. "The whole marriage thing. I don't know how to say this without sounding awful, but she's been planning to get you out of that apartment." "Why?" "Because she wants to bring her boyfriend to live there." I blinked. "Her what?" "She's been seeing this guy Marcus for about 8 months. He lives in California right now, but he's moving here. She needed a bigger place for all of us. Her, me, Jake, and Marcus." My mouth felt dry. 8 months? "Yeah. She met him online. He's got money. Owns some kind of tech business. She's been planning to divorce you right after the wedding and keep the apartment." The room started spinning slightly. "Divorce me and keep my apartment?" "Well, yeah. I mean, if you're married and living there together, she'd have rights to it in a divorce, wouldn't she? That's what she figured anyway." I sat down heavily in the room's single chair. Mallory had married me planning to divorce me immediately. She'd never loved me. She'd never even seen me as a person, just as an obstacle to getting what she wanted. "Derek," I said slowly, "why are you telling me this?" He rubbed the back of his neck. "Because I like you, Carl. You've been good to us, and because what she's doing, it's not right. She made me and Jake promise not to say anything, but I couldn't just watch her do this to you." "What about Jake?" "Jake knows about Marcus too, but he's all in on Mom's plan. He thinks it's smart, getting you out and getting a bigger place." Derek paused. "He doesn't really think about how it affects other people." I nodded, absorbing this information. "So the whole relationship, the whole thing where she seemed to care about me." "She's good at that," Derek said quietly. "She did the same thing with my dad before she left him. And there was another guy after Dad. Before she met you. She knows how to make men feel like they're the most important thing in the world. Until they're not useful anymore." "Yeah." We sat in silence for a moment. Outside, I could hear normal sounds of the building. Mrs. Patterson's television, Mr. Rodriguez practicing his guitar. Life going on as if my world hadn't just collapsed. "Derek, does she know anything about my finances? About how much money I have?" He shook his head. "She thinks you're basically broke, just a building manager making like $2,500 a month. She figured even if you got half the apartment in a divorce, she'd buy you out with Marcus's money." "I see." "Carl," Derek said, standing up, "I should probably go before Mom notices I'm down here. But I wanted you to know that this whole thing wasn't about you not being good enough or anything. She never really gave you a chance." After he left, I sat alone in that basement apartment, staring at my laptop screen. The research I'd done, combined with Derek's confession, painted a clear picture. Mallory wasn't a struggling single mother who'd found love again. She was a predator who specialized in targeting vulnerable men, and she had picked the wrong target. I opened my desk drawer and pulled out a folder I'd hoped I'd never need. Inside were all the legal documents related to my ownership of Morrison Garden Complex. Documents that proved I wasn't just the building manager, but the man who owned every brick, every apartment, every square foot of the property where Mallory now thought she was queen. For 2 years I had watched her struggle with rent, had felt sorry for her financial hardships, had even waived late fees because I believed she was doing her best. The truth was, she'd been playing a role, setting up a con, grooming me for this moment. She thought she'd married a poor building manager she could control and manipulate. Instead, she'd married a man worth nearly $3 million who owned the ground she stood on. Tomorrow, I decided, would be very different from today. I picked up my phone and scrolled to a contact I hadn't called in months. David Brennan, my lawyer. David had handled Sarah's estate, had set up all the legal protections around my assets. and had warned me about exactly this type of situation when I'd told him I was getting remarried. "Carl," David answered on the second ring. "How was the wedding?" "Interesting," I said. "David, I think it's time we had that conversation about protecting my interests." "What's happened?" "My wife of 24 hours just threw me out of my own apartment. She thinks I'm poor, and she's planning to divorce me and take half of what she thinks I own." There was a pause. "She doesn't know about the building?" "She has no idea." "Well," David said, and I could hear him settling into his chair, "this should be educational for her. Can you be in my office tomorrow morning?" As I hung up, I felt something I hadn't felt since Sarah died, a sense of control returning. Mallory thought she was playing chess while I was playing checkers. She was about to learn that she wasn't even playing the same game. Monday morning came with the kind of clarity that only follows a sleepless night of planning. I had spent hours with David Brennan going over every legal detail, every protection I had in place, every move Mallory might try to make. Now it was time to turn the tables. I stood outside apartment 4B, my apartment 4B, at exactly 9 o'clock in the morning. I could hear voices inside, laughter even. They were celebrating their victory, completely unaware that their world was about to shift beneath their feet. I knocked firmly on the door. "Just a minute," Mallory's voice called out, bright and cheerful in a way that made my skin crawl. When she opened the door, she was wearing one of my old Columbia University sweatshirts, one that Sarah had bought me for my birthday years ago. Seeing it on her felt like a violation. "Carl," she said, not bothering to hide her annoyance, "I thought we discussed this. You can't just show up here anymore." "Actually, Mallory, I can." I held up a thick manila envelope. "We need to talk." "I don't think so." "Jake, Derek, come here." Both young men appeared behind her, Jake with his chest puffed out like he was ready for a confrontation, Derek looking uncomfortable but standing with his mother nonetheless. "Guys," I said calmly, "you might want to sit down for this." "We're not sitting down for anything," Jake said. "You need to leave." I opened the envelope and pulled out the first document. "This is the deed to Morrison Garden Complex, the entire building. Take a look at the name on the ownership line." I held it up so they could see. The color drained from Mallory's face as her eyes focused on the words, "Carl Morrison, sole proprietor." That's not possible," she whispered. "It's very possible. In fact, it's been true for the past 15 years. I built this place with the insurance money from my first wife's death and my savings from 20 years in construction management." Jake grabbed the paper from my hand, his eyes scanning frantically. "This has to be fake." "Here's the property tax assessment," I said, handing him another document. "Here's the mortgage documentation showing final payment 3 years ago. Here's my business license for Morrison Property Management. Would you like to see my bank statements showing the rental income from all 12 units? Mallory sat down heavily on the couch, my couch, her hands shaking. "You said you were the building manager." "I said I managed the building. I never said I didn't own it." Derek was staring at the papers, his mouth slightly open. "Carl, you own this whole place? Every brick, every pipe, every square inch of ground it sits on." "But," Mallory said, her voice getting higher, "you live like you don't have any money. You drive that old pickup truck. You wear work clothes. You said you made $2,500 a month. I said that was my salary as building manager, which it is. I pay myself a modest management fee for tax purposes. The rental income from 11 other units, however, brings in about $14,000 monthly. After expenses, maintenance, and property management costs, my net income from this building alone is roughly $9,000 per month." The silence in the room was deafening. Jake was the first to recover. "So what? You still married Mom. She still has rights." "Actually, Jake, she doesn't." I pulled out another document. "This is a prenuptial agreement your mother signed." "I never signed any prenup," Mallory said quickly. "You signed it right here," I said, pointing to a signature on the document. "Friday afternoon, at David Brennan's office. You thought you were signing apartment lease modification papers." Her face went white. You tricked me. I protected myself. David explained every document you signed, Mallory. You just weren't paying attention because you thought you were signing papers to get Derek a lease reduction and Jake permission to park his motorcycle in the courtyard." The truth was, David had been extremely thorough. He'd explained that the documents included marriage protection clauses, but Mallory had been so focused on what she thought were tenant benefits that she'd rushed through the signatures. "You can't do this," she said, standing up abruptly. "We're married. I live here now. You live here as my tenant, Mallory, and as of today your rent is going up to market rate, $3,000 per month." "3,000? Derek gasped. "That's the going rate for a 2-bedroom apartment in this neighborhood." I've been giving you a significant discount for the past 3 years. Jake stepped toward me, his hands clenched into fists. You son of a... Careful, Jake, I said calmly. You're in my building talking to your landlord. And based on what Derek told me yesterday about your mother's boyfriend Marcus, you've been planning this little scheme for quite some time. Mallory's eyes snapped to Derek. What did you tell him? Derek looked miserable. Mom, I couldn't just watch you do this to him. You told him about Marcus? Her voice was deadly quiet. Among other things, I said. I also know about your divorce settlement, Mallory. The $200,000 you received, the $3,000 per month in alimony, the $420,000 you got from selling your house in Westchester. She sat back down, harder this time. You've been lying to me for 2 years about being financially struggling. You've had over $600,000 this entire time. You weren't a struggling single mother, you were a woman running a long con. I never, she started, but I held up my hand. I have your financial records, Mallory. I know about the rental property you own in Albany that brings in $1,800 monthly. I know about the investment account with Merrill Lynch that has a current balance of roughly $460,000. I know you're not poor, and I know you never were. Jake slammed his fist on the coffee table. So what's your point, old man? My point is that your mother married me under false pretenses, planning to divorce me and steal my assets. What she didn't count on was that I'm not the naive widower she thought I was. I pulled out my phone and opened the security camera app. I also know that Marcus flew in from San Francisco yesterday and spent the night in apartment 2C, Mrs. Chen's place, because your mother arranged for him to stay there while she figured out how to get rid of me permanently. Mallory's face crumpled. How do you know that? Because I own the building. Mallory, I have security cameras in every hallway, every entrance, every common area. I've watched Marcus come and go 3 times in the past 6 months during what you told me were weekend visits to your sister in Connecticut. I scrolled through the camera footage on my phone, showing her clear images of a tall man with dark hair entering and leaving the building, sometimes with overnight bags, always when I was supposedly away on building maintenance trips. You've been planning this for months, the marriage, the immediate divorce, taking half of what you thought I owned. You figured I was a simple building manager with maybe $40,000 or $50,000 in savings, and even half of that would be worth it for a few months of pretending to love me. Derek was staring at his mother with an expression I'd never seen before, disgust mixed with disappointment. The problem with your plan, I continued, is that you're not divorcing a poor building manager. You're divorcing a millionaire who owns property, investments, and enough liquid assets to make your little inheritance look like pocket change. How much? She whispered. Including this building, my investment portfolio, savings, and other real estate holdings, just over $2,800,000. Jake dropped into a chair. Derek sat down slowly on the couch beside his mother. But here's the beautiful part of all this, I said, pulling out the final document from my envelope. Because you signed that prenuptial agreement, and because you've committed marriage fraud by entering into our marriage with the premeditated intent to divorce me for financial gain, you're not entitled to a single penny. Mallory looked at the document in my hands. What is that? Divorce papers. I filed them this morning. Grounds, fraud, deception, and breach of marital contract. David assures me that, given the evidence of your premeditation and your false claims about your financial status, this will be processed quickly and in my favor. She started crying then, but they weren't the gentle tears I'd seen during our relationship. These were harsh, angry sobs of someone whose plans had completely fallen apart. You can't do this to us, she said through her tears. We have nowhere to go. You have plenty of places to go. Mallory, you have $460,000 in investments, monthly alimony, and rental income from your Albany property. You're not homeless. You're just not getting my money on top of your money. What about Jake and Derek? I looked at both young men. Derek met my eyes with what looked like relief. Jake was staring at his hands. Derek can stay if he wants. His name was on the lease modification you thought you were signing, but it was actually a separate apartment lease for Unit 3A. If he wants to live here as a regular tenant, paying regular rent, he's welcome. Derek straightened up. Really? You're the only one in this family who showed me any honesty, Derek. Yes, really. And Jake? Mallory asked. Jake will have to find somewhere else to live, preferably with Marcus, since that was the plan all along anyway. The room fell silent except for Mallory's crying. You have 30 days to vacate apartment 4B, I said. That's more generous than I need to be, but I'm not heartless, I'm just not stupid. As I walked toward the door, Mallory called out behind me. "Carl, wait, we can work this out. I made mistakes, but we can fix this." I turned back to look at her one last time. "Mallory, you didn't make mistakes. You made choices. You chose to lie to me for 2 years. You chose to marry me, planning to divorce me immediately. You chose to see me as nothing more than a mark in your con game. I never. You did. And now you're facing the consequences of those choices." I opened the door and stepped into the hallway, then turned back. "Oh, and Mallory, Marcus should find a different place to stay tonight. Mrs. Chen's lease has a strict no overnight guests policy that I'll be enforcing starting immediately." As I walked down the hallway toward the elevator, I could hear raised voices behind me, Jake's angry shouts, Derek trying to calm everyone down, and Mallory's continuing sobs. For the first time since Saturday, I felt like myself again. The game was over, and I had won. I thought revealing the truth would be the end of it. I was wrong. Tuesday morning, I woke up in my basement apartment to the sound of my phone ringing insistently. David Brennan's name flashed on the screen. "Carl, we have a problem," he said without preamble when I answered. I sat up in bed, instantly alert. "What kind of problem?" "Your wife filed her own divorce petition yesterday afternoon. She's claiming you defrauded her by hiding your assets and that the prenuptial agreement should be voided because you obtained it through deception." I felt my stomach drop. "Can she do that?" "She's trying. Her lawyer is arguing that you deliberately misrepresented yourself as a poor building manager to trick her into signing papers she didn't understand. They're asking for temporary spousal support, half of all marital assets, and exclusive use of the apartment during the divorce proceedings." "Exclusive use of my apartment? It gets worse, Carl. They filed an emergency restraining order claiming you threatened them yesterday during your confrontation. According to their filing, you became violent and intimidating when they refused to leave." I was fully awake now, anger coursing through my veins. "That's completely false." "I know. But the family court judge granted a temporary restraining order pending a hearing. You're not allowed within 500 feet of apartment 4B or any member of the Chen family. This is insane. It's my building. I know. We'll fight it, but for now, you need to stay away. Any violation of that restraining order could result in your arrest. And that would hurt our case significantly." After hanging up with David, I sat in my small apartment trying to process what was happening. Mallory wasn't just fighting back, she was escalating. She was using the legal system to try to take everything from me while painting herself as the victim. But if she wanted to play dirty, she had picked the wrong opponent. I spent the morning researching Mallory's new lawyer, Patricia Valdez. She specialized in high-asset divorces and had a reputation for aggressive tactics on behalf of female clients. Her website featured testimonials from women who had gotten what they deserved from wealthy ex-husbands. She was expensive, but she was good. The question was, how was Mallory paying for her? By noon, I had my answer. A quick check of public records showed that Mallory had taken a cash advance of $50,000 against her investment account the day after our wedding. She had been planning this legal battle before she even threw me out of the apartment. My phone buzzed with a text message from Derek. "Can we talk? Not about the legal stuff, about something else." I called him immediately. "Derek, I can't come to the building. There's a restraining order." "I know. Can you meet me at the coffee shop on Maple Street? It's about Mom and Jake." An hour later, Derek sat across from me in a corner booth at Rossetti's Cafe, looking more tired than I'd ever seen him. His usually neat appearance was disheveled, his eyes red from what looked like a sleepless night. "She's completely lost it," he said without preamble. "What do you mean? Yesterday after you left?" "She went crazy. She started throwing things, screaming about how she was going to destroy you. Jake was right there with her, talking about how they were going to take everything you owned." Derek paused, running his hands through his hair. "But then Marcus showed up. At the apartment?" "Yeah. And Carl, this guy isn't what she told us he was." I leaned forward. "What do you mean?" "She said he was successful, that he owned a tech company in California. But when I talked to him last night, he let slip that he's actually unemployed. He's been living off unemployment benefits and staying with different women he meets online." My blood ran cold. "Different women?" He started bragging to Jake about how he's got this system worked out. He finds women online who seem financially stable, convinces them he's successful, then gradually moves in with them. When they figure out he's lying, he moves on to the next one. "And Mallory doesn't know this?" Derek shook his head. "She has no idea. She thinks he's going to help her pay for the legal battle, and then they'll live together in your apartment after she wins the divorce." I sat back, processing this information. "Derek, this means your mother is being conned by the same type of person she tried to con." That's not even the worst part, Derek said. He pulled out his phone and showed me a photo. It was Marcus, but he looked different, thinner, scruffier, clearly older than the polished photos Mallory had shown me. I reverse searched his photo. His real name isn't Marcus Chen, it's Martin Kowalski, and he's got a criminal record. For what? Fraud, identity theft. He's been arrested 3 times in California for running romance scams on older women. There's a warrant out for him in Nevada for skipping bail on a theft charge. I stared at the information on Derek's phone screen. This was bigger than just a messy divorce. Mallory had unknowingly brought a career criminal into my building. Derek, why are you telling me this? Because I'm scared, he said simply. Mom is so focused on trying to destroy you that she's not seeing what's right in front of her. This guy is dangerous. And Jake, he paused. Jake thinks Martin is cool. He's talking about doing some kind of business with him. What kind of business? I don't know. But they've been whispering about it. Something about easy money and how stupid rich people are. A chill ran down my spine. I thought about all the elderly residents in my building. Mrs. Patterson with her Social Security checks. Mr. Rodriguez with his veteran's pension. These were vulnerable people, and I had unknowingly allowed a predator into their home. Derek, I need you to do something for me. Can you record any conversations between Jake and Martin? I can try, but Carl, there's something else you need to know. What? Mom cleaned out her investment account yesterday. All $460,000. She moved it to some offshore account that Martin set up for her. He told her it was to hide the money from you during the divorce. I felt like I'd been punched in the stomach. She moved her entire savings to an account controlled by a man with a criminal record? He told her it was temporary, just until after the legal stuff was settled. But Carl, I looked at the paperwork he had her sign. I don't think she's ever going to see that money again. I closed my eyes, trying to think clearly. The situation had spiraled far beyond a simple case of marriage fraud. Mallory had been victimized by exactly the type of con she had tried to run on me, and now she was too invested in fighting me to realize it. Derek, you need to get out of that apartment. What? Tonight, pack your things and leave. Go stay with a friend, get a hotel room, whatever you need to do. This situation is about to get much worse. I can't just abandon her. You're not abandoning her. You're protecting yourself. Derek, think about what you just told me. Martin is a career criminal with fraud convictions. Your mother just gave him access to nearly $500,000. Jake is talking about getting involved in whatever scheme Martin is running. And all of this is happening in my building, where there are elderly tenants with fixed incomes and limited ability to protect themselves. Derek's face went pale as the implications sank in. I have to call the police, I continued. I have to report Martin's presence in the building and the fact that he's using a false identity. When I do that, everyone in that apartment is going to be investigated. But Mom, your mother made her choices, Derek. She chose to lie to me. She chose to try to steal my assets. And now she's chosen to trust a criminal with her life savings. I can't protect her from the consequences of those choices. Derek was quiet for a long moment. Finally, he nodded. You're right. I'll pack tonight. Good. And Derek, when you leave, don't tell anyone where you're going. Not your mother, not Jake, and definitely not Martin. As we parted ways outside the coffee shop, Derek grabbed my arm. Carl, I'm sorry for all of this. You didn't deserve what she did to you. No one deserves to be conned. Derek. Not me, not your mother, not the other victims Martin has left behind. The difference is I can protect myself. Your mother chose not to. That evening, I sat in my basement apartment with my laptop, compiling everything I knew about Martin Kowalski. Criminal records, arrest warrants, photos, aliases. I had enough information to put him back in prison, and I intended to use it. But first I needed to make sure my tenants were safe. I started with Mrs. Patterson, calling her directly. Mrs. Patterson, this is Carl. I need to ask you about any interactions you've had with Mallory's new boyfriend. Oh, that handsome young man. He was asking about my late husband's coin collection yesterday. So interested in the history behind it. My heart sank. Martin was already working on his next victims. Mrs. Patterson, I need you to listen to me very carefully. As I made call after call to my tenants, warning them about Martin and advising them to secure any valuables, I realized that Mallory's attempt to destroy me had backfired in the worst possible way. She hadn't just failed to steal my assets, she had handed her own money to a predator and put innocent people in danger. The restraining order meant I couldn't confront Martin directly, but I didn't need to. I had something better than a confrontation. I had evidence, I had the law on my side, and I had a responsibility to protect my tenants that trumped any legal maneuvering Mallory's lawyer could attempt. Tomorrow, Martin Kowalski was going to discover that some buildings are harder to break into than others. The call came at 6 in the morning on Wednesday. Mallory's name on my phone screen made my stomach clench, but I answered anyway. Carl. Her voice was barely a whisper, completely different from the cold, calculating tone she'd used on Sunday. Please, I need to talk to you. Mallory, there's a restraining order. We're not supposed to. I know, but this is important. It's about Derek. He's missing. I sat up in bed, instantly alert. What do you mean missing? He didn't come home last night. His phone goes straight to voicemail. Carl, I think something happened to him. Despite everything she had done to me, the fear in her voice seemed genuine. Derek had told me he was leaving, but he wouldn't have just disappeared without telling me where he was going. Have you called the police? I can't, she said, and now she was crying. Martin said if I involve the police, it will mess up the offshore account situation. He thinks Derek might have taken some money and run. Derek wouldn't steal money, Mallory. I know that, you know that. But Martin... Her voice broke completely. Carl, I think I made a terrible mistake. This was it. The moment I had been waiting for without realizing it. Mallory was finally seeing Martin for what he really was. But it might be too late. Where's Martin now? He left early this morning, said he had business to take care of. Jake went with him. Warning bells went off in my head. Mallory, listen to me carefully. You need to get out of that apartment right now. What? Why? Because Martin isn't who he says he is. His real name is Martin Kowalski, and he's a career criminal. Derek found out about his background and was going to warn you. The silence on the other end of the line stretched so long I thought she had hung up. Mallory? That's impossible, she whispered. He showed me his business credentials. His bank statements. They were fake. All of it. Mallory, he's stolen your money. The offshore account he set up, that money is gone. I heard what sounded like something crashing to the floor, then sobbing. My investment account? All $460,000. It's gone. No. No, no, no. She was repeating the word like a mantra, her voice getting higher and more hysterical. He said it was just temporary. He said after the divorce we'd have all your money plus mine. There isn't going to be any money from me, Mallory. The prenuptial agreement is ironclad. David checked it with 3 different lawyers. But the restraining order was a stalling tactic. Martin probably suggested it, didn't he? To buy him time to clean out your accounts and disappear. Another long silence. He did suggest it, she said finally, her voice hollow. He said it would give us leverage in court. He said it would make you look unstable. Mallory, you need to call the police right now. Report the fraud, report Derek missing, and tell them about Martin's real identity. I can't. If I admit I was trying to steal your money, they'll arrest me too. Better arrested than dead, Mallory. And if Derek is really missing... She started crying again, harder this time. What have I done? What have I done to my sons? For the first time since Sunday morning, I felt a flicker of sympathy for her. Not because of what she had tried to do to me, but because she was finally understanding the true cost of her choices. Mallory, where did Martin and Jake go this morning? I don't know. Martin just said he had to take care of some loose ends. The phrase loose ends sent ice through my veins. Derek wasn't missing. He was a loose end that needed to be taken care of. I'm calling Detective Rodriguez, I said. He handles fraud cases for the Brooklyn PD. You need to be ready to tell him everything. Carl, wait, no more waiting, Mallory. No more games, no more manipulation, no more lies. Derek is missing, Jake is with a dangerous criminal, and you're sitting in an apartment that could be a crime scene. This stops now. I hung up and immediately called Detective Rodriguez, whom I had spoken with the day before about Martin's presence in my building. He answered on the first ring. Carl, I was just about to call you. We found your missing tenant. Derek, is he okay? He's fine. He's at the precinct, actually. He came in voluntarily this morning to report a conspiracy to commit fraud involving his mother and the man you identified as Martin Kowalski. Relief flooded through me, thank God. There's more. Derek recorded several conversations between Kowalski and the older brother, Jake. They were planning to rob some of your elderly tenants. They had detailed information about Mrs. Patterson's coin collection, Mr. Rodriguez's veterans benefits, even Mrs. Chen's jewelry collection. So Derek wasn't missing. He was gathering evidence. Smart kid. He realized his family was in too deep and decided to do the right thing. But Carl, we need to move fast. Our surveillance team lost Kowalski and Jake about an hour ago. They could be coming back to the building. That's what we're thinking. Derek says Jake has a key to the apartment and knows the building layout. If they're planning to hit your tenants, today would be the day to do it. What do you need from me? We need you to stay away from the building until we can apprehend them. I know it's your property, but if something goes wrong and civilians get hurt, I understand. But as I hung up, I realized I couldn't just sit in my basement apartment while my tenants were in danger. Restraining order or no restraining order, I had a responsibility to protect them. I called Mrs. Patterson first. Mrs. Patterson, this is Carl. I need you to listen to me carefully and do exactly what I say. One by one, I called every tenant in the building. I told them to lock their doors, not answer unless they heard my voice specifically, and to call 911 if they saw anyone they didn't recognize in the hallways. Then I called Mallory back. The police know about Martin, I said when she answered. Derek is safe. He's been working with them to gather evidence. He's okay? He's fine, but Jake is still with Martin and they're planning to rob our neighbors. Jake would never. Jake is 19 years old, Mallory. Martin is a career criminal who knows exactly how to manipulate young men into thinking crime is exciting and consequence-free. Your son is in serious danger. I could hear her breathing heavily on the other end of the line. What can I do? When they come back, and they will come back, you need to call Detective Rodriguez immediately. Don't try to stop them. Don't try to talk Jake out of whatever they're planning, just call the police. I can't turn in my own son. You're not turning him in. You're saving him from making the worst mistake of his life. There was a long pause. Carl, she said finally, I know you have no reason to believe me, but I never meant for any of this to happen. When I started this whole thing, I thought I was just protecting my future. I didn't think about how it would hurt you. You thought I was poor and stupid, so it wouldn't matter. Yes, she admitted quietly, and I was wrong about everything. About you, about Martin, about what was really important. Mallory, your opinion of me isn't what matters right now. What matters is keeping Jake from destroying his life and keeping our neighbors safe. I know. And Carl, thank you for protecting Derek, for warning me, for not just walking away and letting us all burn. I'm not doing this for you, Mallory. I'm doing it because it's the right thing to do. After I hung up, I sat in my small apartment staring at my phone and waiting. The security camera app on my tablet showed normal activity in the building. Mrs. Patterson checking her mail. Mr. Rodriguez walking his small dog in the courtyard. Then at 2:30 in the afternoon I saw them. Martin and Jake entered through the back service entrance, both carrying large duffel bags. On my screen, I watched them move through the building service corridors, heading not toward apartment 4B, but toward the second floor where Mrs. Patterson lived. I called Detective Rodriguez immediately. They're in the building, I said. Second floor heading toward apartment 2A. We're 3 minutes out. Do not engage them, Carl. I'm not in the building. I'm watching through security cameras. Good. Keep watching and keep us updated on their location. On my screen, I saw Martin and Jake stop outside Mrs. Patterson's door. Martin pulled something from his bag. Tools for picking locks. Then I saw Mallory. She appeared at the end of the hallway, walking slowly toward them. In her hand was her phone. Detective Rodriguez, I said into my phone. Mallory is approaching them. She's going to try to stop this. Damn it. On my screen, I watched Mallory reach Martin and Jake just as Martin was working on Mrs. Patterson's lock. I couldn't hear what was being said, but their body language told the story. Mallory was pleading with Jake, reaching for him. Martin was angry, gesturing aggressively. Then Jake stepped away from his mother, shaking his head. He was choosing Martin over her. I watched Mallory's shoulders slump in defeat as she realized she had lost her son to the same type of predator she had tried to become. But then she did something that surprised me. Instead of walking away, she stepped between Martin and Mrs. Patterson's door. For the first time since I had known her, Mallory Chen was protecting someone other than herself. The police arrived 90 seconds later. 3 months later, I stood in my renovated apartment 4B, looking out at Sarah's rose garden in the courtyard below. The white roses were blooming again, fuller and more beautiful than they had been in years. Sometimes things need to be pruned back severely before they can grow properly again. The legal proceedings had moved swiftly once Martin Kowalski was arrested. His real identity unraveled quickly under police investigation, revealing a trail of fraud victims across 4 states. The offshore account he had set up for Mallory's money led investigators to a complex scheme involving at least 12 other victims, mostly widowed or divorced women between the ages of 40 and 60. Mallory had cooperated fully with law enforcement, providing evidence that helped convict not only Martin, but also a network of accomplices who specialized in romance fraud targeting middle-aged women. In exchange for her cooperation, the district attorney had agreed not to file charges against her for the marriage fraud she had attempted against me. Jake hadn't been so fortunate. His involvement in the planned robbery of my tenants, combined with his participation in Martin's other schemes, had earned him an 18-month sentence in county jail. He would be eligible for early release in 9 months if he completed the rehabilitation programs Derek had convinced him to sign up for. Derek knocked on my door at exactly 4 o'clock, as he had every Wednesday for the past 2 months. "How's the job search going?" I asked as I let him in. "I got the position at Morrison Construction," he said with a smile. "They want me to start Monday." I had recommended Derek for an entry-level project management position with my old company. After everything he had done to protect me and the other tenants, it was the least I could do. "That's great news. They're good people there. You'll learn a lot." Derek looked around the apartment, which I had completely renovated after Mallory moved out. New paint, new furniture, new everything. The only things I had kept were the photographs of Sarah and the wedding ring I still wore on my right hand. "It looks good in here," he said. "Really different." It needed to be different. Derek sat down in one of the new chairs, his expression serious. "Carl, I need to ask you something." "Go ahead." "Why did you help us? After everything Mom tried to do to you, after all the lies and the legal stuff, why didn't you just let us burn?" I had been expecting this question for months. Derek deserved an honest answer. "Because holding on to anger would have made me become someone I don't want to be. Your mother hurt me, yes, but she also got hurt worse than I ever did. She lost her savings, her son ended up in jail, and she had to face the fact that she had become exactly the kind of person she always claimed to hate. But you could have just walked away. I could have. But walking away would have meant letting Martin hurt Mrs. Patterson and the other tenants. It would have meant letting Jake destroy his life. And it would have meant letting your mother continue down a path that was only going to lead to more pain for everyone." Derek nodded slowly. "She talks about you sometimes, you know. How is she doing after the arrests?" Mallory had moved back to Albany, where she still owned a small rental property. With her investment savings gone and her alimony payments suspended during the investigation, she had been forced to get a job as a receptionist at a dental office. It was the first time in years she had worked a regular job. "She's different," Derek said. "Quieter. She doesn't talk about money all the time anymore. She's been going to some kind of therapy group for people who've been victims of financial fraud." "That's good. She asked me to give you this." Derek pulled an envelope from his jacket pocket. I recognized Mallory's handwriting on the front. My name, written in careful script. "You don't have to read it now," Derek said, "but she wanted you to have it." After Derek left, I sat with the letter for almost an hour before opening it. When I finally did, it was shorter than I had expected. "Carl, I know there's nothing I can say that will undo what I tried to do to you. I know that apologizing doesn't give you back the trust I broke or the peace I stole from you, but I want you to know that losing everything taught me something important. I spent so many years focused on what I thought I deserved, what I thought I needed to feel secure, that I forgot to pay attention to what I actually had. You were kind to me for 2 years. You were patient with my problems, generous with your time, and gentle with my fears. I had a good man who cared about me, and I threw it away because I wanted more than what we had together. Derek told me that you helped him get his job. Thank you for not punishing my son for my mistakes. I also want you to know that I've been in contact with some of Martin's other victims. We're working together to help law enforcement track down the money he stole. It won't bring back what we lost, but maybe it will prevent him from hurting other women. You deserved better than what I gave you. I hope you find someone who appreciates what a good man you are. Mallory." I folded the letter and set it aside. It was a good apology, honest and without excuses. It didn't change what had happened, but it told me that Mallory was finally becoming the person she could have been all along. That evening, I walked through the building doing my usual maintenance rounds. The hallways were quiet, the tenants safe, the building secure. Mrs. Patterson waved at me from her doorway where she was setting out fresh flowers. Mr. Rodriguez was teaching his grandson to play guitar in the courtyard. Mrs. Chen was tending to the herb garden she had started near Sarah's roses. This was my life now. Not the life I had planned when I married Mallory, but the life I had chosen after I learned who she really was. I was alone again, but I wasn't lonely. I had my work, my tenants who had become like family, and the quiet satisfaction of knowing I had protected the people who mattered to me. As I locked up the building for the night, I thought about the conversation Derek and I had earlier about holding on to anger. The truth was, I wasn't angry at Mallory anymore. I was grateful to her. She had shown me something important about myself. When everything fell apart, when I was tested in ways I had never imagined, I had chosen to be the kind of person Sarah would have been proud of. I had chosen protection over revenge, justice over destruction, and healing over hatred. That was worth more than any amount of money Mallory could have stolen from me. I climbed the stairs to my apartment, stopping as I always did at the window that overlooked the courtyard. Sarah's roses were in full bloom, white petals glowing in the moonlight like small stars against the dark earth. "I think you would have approved," I said quietly to the garden below. The next morning I woke up to sunlight streaming through windows I had opened the night before. For the first time in months I felt truly rested. I made coffee in the kitchen where Mallory had told me to leave, walked out onto the small balcony where she had planned to bring her boyfriend, and looked out at the city I had called home for 15 years. My phone rang. The caller ID showed a number I didn't recognize, but the area code was local. "Hello, Mr. Morrison? This is Janet Coleman from the Brooklyn Community Center. I hope I'm not calling too early." "Not at all. What can I do for you?" "I'm calling about the apartment building support program you inquired about last month. We'd like to discuss having you speak to other property owners about protecting elderly tenants from financial fraud." I had almost forgotten about the inquiry I'd made. After everything with Martin, I had contacted several community organizations about creating educational programs for property owners and tenants. "I'd be interested in that." "Wonderful. Would you be available to meet next Tuesday? We have several other building owners who have expressed interest, and Detective Rodriguez said he might be able to join us to discuss warning signs to watch for." After we set up the meeting, I sat on my balcony finishing my coffee and thinking about the future. For months I had been focused on rebuilding my life after Mallory's betrayal. Now I was ready to think about building something new. Derek stopped by that afternoon with news that Jake had been accepted into the prison's vocational training program. "He's learning electrical work," Derek said. "He wants to have a real skill when he gets out." "That's good. Honest work builds character." "Carl, can I ask you something else?" "Sure. Do you think people can really change? I mean, fundamentally change who they are?" I thought about Mallory working as a dental receptionist, attending therapy groups, trying to help law enforcement catch the man who had conned her. I thought about Jake learning a trade in prison, finally understanding that easy money wasn't easy at all. I thought about myself, learning to trust my instincts about people instead of just hoping for the best. "I think people can choose to change," I said finally. "But it usually takes losing everything they thought they wanted before they figure out what they actually need." "What do you need, Carl?" I looked around my renovated apartment, thought about my tenants, my work, the community support program I was about to join. I need to know that the people I care about are safe. I need to do work that matters. And I need to honor the memory of people who loved me by being the kind of person who deserves that love. Derek smiled. "I think you're doing pretty well at all of that." That evening, I walked down to the courtyard and sat on the bench beside Sarah's roses. The building around me was quiet and secure, filled with people I had chosen to protect and who had chosen to trust me. I was 55 years old, divorced, and living alone. By most measures, my attempt at finding love again had been a complete disaster. But I had learned something valuable from the disaster. I had learned the difference between being alone and being lonely, between being generous and being gullible, between second chances and second mistakes. Most importantly, I had learned that sometimes the best way to honor the love you've lost is to protect the love that still exists in the world around you. As the sun set over Brooklyn, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold, I made a decision. Tomorrow, I would start looking at apartments and buildings owned by other people. It was time to stop being just a landlord and start being a neighbor. But tonight I would sit in my garden, surrounded by roses my wife had planted and protected by walls I had built, grateful for the hard-won wisdom that comes from surviving betrayal and choosing healing. The test of true face was over, and for the first time in months I was looking forward to whatever came next.